You are listening to Healing with Haley, episode 34, Birthday Breakdown and Blues. Welcome to the podcast where it's all about healing, self-improvement, our brains, and living your dream life. My name is Haley Kirk, and I'm a life coach, mom, and entrepreneur here to show you how to be the hero of your story. You guys, it is 11:24 on October 9th, the eve before my birthday. And it feels a little weird. It feels like a little bit mystical, but like a muted mystical. I don't know. It's kind of an interesting feeling. Um, but I wanted to do one last podcast before I turned 32 years old to share the wisdom of 31-year-old Haley. So, um, wow, I guess now you guys all know my DOB. Keep that secret. So I I want to go a little back. I think that for me personally, birthdays and holidays, for that matter, has always been a big deal. And I want to attribute that to my mom. She is one of those types of people that loves to make a big deal out of people's birthdays, out of holidays. Like it would be anything. I remember as a little girl, I'd find like these big Hershey kisses on my dresser or like some kind of fun Easter egg thing. Like she would always be really cute and do something special. And my dad for our birthdays, he would wake up really early in the morning and make us a big, delicious breakfast. And his go-to was Danish pancakes, crepes, sausage, bacon, eggs, apple skewers. It's like a Danish pancake. It looks like a baseball pancake. Oh, so delicious. And I loved that. It made my childhood so fun. And my mom would always have like this beautiful wreath. I remember one Halloween, she had this witch wreath and like the hair was made out of straw and the witch had a little wart and a crooked nose and a crooked hat. And it was just such a fun way to celebrate the passage of time, whatever holiday it was. She always made it really special. And I love that. And I do that in my own way too. I've always loved holidays. It's so funny. Sometimes my friends will make fun of me and say that I like to decorate like my house more than myself, which is so true. I love going to craft stores more than I do like clothing stores. It's so funny. Maybe there's something to that I'll dig into deeper. But I this birthday, and the reason I titled the podcast, I always like to be clickbaity with my podcast episodes, so you guys will listen. But it's really not that dramatic. But I don't think that it's too far-fetched. So here's what I'm trying to say. I feel like sometimes we feel this anxiety almost towards our birthdays. Like, are people going to remember? Are people like, do I have to remind people? Or like, I want to do something, but only if people want to. There's this chatter in our brains about our birthdays. And I fall victim to it all the time. And I know everybody does. And I feel like a lot of people have done really good work on it. And I think for me, I, you know, I all my college friends are in a different state from me, and I'm new to this state, and so I feel a little maybe disconnected from my friends out of state. But I think that being a mom, I think this is kind of some of the thoughts that have come up about it. Being a mom has kind of isolated me from a lot of my connections and networks, and so I feel that I can't show up like the friend I've been or wanted to be. And if I were to show up, it would be a massive sacrifice, which I am, happy to do and sometimes maybe won't do, right? And so I want to start off with how there's all this pressure, right? That, you know, are people gonna remember me? Are people gonna like what are people gonna do? It's all this uncertainty, right? And it's okay. I really have to remind myself and my clients that uncertainty is expected. And we actually, as human beings, like to have uncertainty, right? That's the whole point behind like presence is that uncertainty, like, oh, what is it? I don't know. And so I want to, talk on that piece. I mean, and I feel like social media has even increased this anxiety because, we see all these lavish birthday parties. We see, the other day I saw Jason Derulo's birthday party and his wife went like above and beyond and she brought these like sous chefs or like the Korean chefs where they like make the grill go on fire and like it's just fancy and it's outside and it's by the pool and it's all these lights in the pool. It's bougie, just bougie, 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 bougie. And you're like, huh, well, that cost of that birthday is literally like my salary or something. I mean, so you're like, that's not gonna happen. And then you'll see like people making really big deals about their birthday on social media and all this um attention people get on their birthdays. And there's almost this comparison that happens where you're like, oh, am I gonna like I'm not as important or I'm not as special, all this chatter that goes on in our brains. And a lot of times we take personally, right? Like if people we try to get something together for our birthday and people might can't make it or try to make it, but circumstances happen. And it's so interesting how much we can like take it personally or make it mean something about us. And we're creatures of meaning, so it makes sense why we might do it and will do it eventually. And I think there's just so much that goes behind this birthday thing. So I'm gonna give you guys like an anecdote for this example because I just recently celebrated my birthday with my amazing friends and I had, a big group chat and all these people that I wanted, to invite to my birthday. And and you know, it's just we have busy lives, right? We have busy lives and I knew that, but there was this chatter going on in my head. Like the group chat kept getting smaller and smaller. People were trying to see if it worked with their schedule, with their budget, with their time, and it just didn't end up working out for a lot of the people I invited. And it started to kind of get to me and honest. And um I'm so glad that I just let those thoughts be there. I just let those thoughts be there. I'm like, hey, like I'm feeling really insecure about, my I guess maybe the way that my brain was processing it was like the love my friends have for me or what my friends are willing to do or all this which is not true. And then I get to the cabin. So the plan was to go to a cabin for a weekend and have a night where we're just, doing fun girl stuff and then leave the next day. And so I get to the cabin. I'm so glad that I got there before everyone else to just, process those difficult emotions. And there was even this part of my life, which I'm going to talk about in another episode, where I was grieving. I was grieving a circumstance in my life. And so there was that. And then this, the decreasing number of the people in the group chat that I wanted to come to this birthday getaway. And I just let myself be in those insecure emotions, the uncertainty, the anxiety, even the fear. Um, I let it all be there and I just decided to kind of take a step back from those thoughts. I was just kind of like, I'm gonna just sit here and relax and enjoy this beautiful foresty air. And the Airbnb was gorgeous. It was so stunning. It was totally in this beautiful northern part of Maryland that was so small town and country and oh, it was so woodsy. It just felt so cozy. And we were right by a big spring and it was just the water sounds were big and oh, it was just delightful. And so I'm so glad I had like those 2 hours to myself to really soak up the experience, allow the emotions. And then once my friends started to get there, it was such a treat. Like they made it so special. One of my friends, she dressed up in a unicorn blow up costume, grabbed this cupcake and with the candles lit up. And we sang happy birthday. And she started twerking and doing the splits, and it was so funny. It was so, so funny. And she brought this big bin of like dress up stuff, and we were like listening to Shakira because Shakira's my favorite. And it was a blast. It was definitely a blast. And we were just doing like glow in the dark stuff, and we had all these props, and we were just going crazy. And then we started playing board games and talking. There was lots of talking and processing and um it just felt so connecting and relaxing and enjoyable and just we made, yummy food. We had this big bag of cookies that I made and we're just snacking on those like crazy and it really was such a good time. It was for me so important to remember that when you have a birthday, it's okay to celebrate it with whoever and wherever and whatever happens, right? And it doesn't mean anything unless you make it mean whatever it is you're trying to make it mean. So, in to explain in clear, more concise terms, is for this birthday, I had all these ideas of, you know, what we could do and what we would and who we would be with and where and activities and all these things. But in the end, whoever can come will come, and whoever can't won't. And how nice is that? It doesn't have to mean, oh, they're not really my friend, or oh, they don't really love me, or those thoughts are just, it's just ego talk, right? It's all ego talk. And it's okay that those thoughts are there. Just let them be there and then you can kind of question them like, is that really true? Like, can I really prove that my friends don't really care for me? No. And does that serve me believing that my friends don't care about me? No, it doesn't. And here's what's fun is the more you grow up, your circle of people gets smaller and smaller. And I actually I think there's so much depth that comes in the smaller numbers of people that you are spending your time with because it gets more intimate, right? It gets more and more intimate and connecting. And I feel like the deeper you go into a relationship, the more you learn about yourself. And that's something one of my favorite psychologists, Esther Perel, talks about is that relationships teach us about us. And I love that so much. And so, what I'd love to do in my own personal life is tomorrow on my birthday, I have I'm going to go into it like, how do I want to make this day special for me, right? The relationship that we have with ourselves is so important and how are we making that happen? How are we how are we deepening that relationship with ourselves? How are we taking care of ourselves and our own needs? And and tomorrow I'm going to do just that with my son. We're going to have a blast. I'm thinking about like, I think we should go to somewhere that's like a fun brunch, and then maybe we could do like a fun hike, and then we could even nap together. Oh, I love naps with my son. Maybe he'll let me cuddle him for a nap. And then I love going to Halloween stores and like planning all of our decorations. And we did that today. I was like preparing for my birthday tomorrow. I mowed the lawn and I got all my Halloween decor up on the outside and all the floor decor on the inside. And I think we're just gonna make it super special. And whoever wants to send me a birthday thing or like a birthday message, a birthday phone call, whatever, whoever, it's not for me, it's going to be very neutral, right? Like, oh, it's a pleasant surprise if I do get anything. I'm expecting zero, right? And the reason I'm just going to expect zero is because if I go in with that, then I'll always be pleasantly surprised. And staying neutral too about the expectations, I think is going to serve me very well. And I'm happy to hear feedback about this, but I think that having this approach is so helpful. And I think it helps our relationships. I think it helps ourselves. And what I'm not saying is to dull the excitement of your birthday. Not at all. If you want to go out and rent a party bus, rent a jumpy house, like rent a section at the club, like whatever you want to do, you should totally do it because it's your birthday and because it's what you want to do, not because it's something you think you need to do to be relevant or to be important or to be loved, right? One of my favorite quotes ever is by Byron Katie, and it says this: if I had a prayer, it would be this: God, spare me from the desire to seek love, approval, and appreciation. And I think on our birthdays, we do this. It's like, or even on Mother's Day, Father's Day, any holiday, right? Or any day. When we're seeking love, we do weird things. We do really weird things. And I think that the more we can neutralize and not seek and just be and allow, oh man, that's a game changer in itself. And this whole being versus doing concept is something I've been trying on. Eckhart Tolle, he's an amazing spiritual leader. He's wrote some amazing books called The Power of Now and A New Earth. Oh, highly recommend. And he also has a podcast if you guys are interested in it. And Byron Katie has a podcast as well. Love those two. I learn and use so much of their teachings in my coaching programs and in my life as well. But this whole idea of being versus doing, and not to say one is better than the other, but just that realizing the more we allow ourselves to be than to just be doing and doing busy work. And we live in a practical world, right? Where we have, goals, we need to provide for ourselves. That doing is piece is very important. But there's also this piece of just being and enjoying and allowing. And recently, I just saw this Instagram video of Gabor Mate on a podcast, and he's talking about the story of Christopher Robin, and he was talking about how the end of the story is very meaningful. And so Christopher Robin, the scene that he's talking about is Christopher Robin is telling his toys that he's going to school and that he's not going to be able to play with them as much anymore. And how much not being able to play anymore is what a lot of us do in adulthood is we are driven to justify our existence in the world, and that drive comes from childhood trauma and how we sacrifice the playfulness because we're driven by an unconscious need to validate our existence, and just how important play is. and that we can always keep playing in the Enchanted Forest, like Christopher Robin and Winnie the Pooh. And that just that just made me so happy because, like I mentioned, what my typical routine was with my son was I know as a mother, there's two things that are very important. Well, three things that are very important for me, aside from his, you know, Maslow's hierarchy of needs is the food, shelter, water. I am very conscious of his health, and I want to make sure that he gets the most nutritious meals. And I also want him to play outside and just play in general. And my default for playing outside was I would just put my headphones in, have one out, have one earbud out just to hear, that he's calling me or anything that he needs. But I was very much so on autopilot. And recently I've been trying this whole being versus doing. And lately I've been able to break out of that habit. And I don't even bring my headphones now because I'm like, I just want to go play with my son. And it's such it's such a joy. It's so interesting how much when instead instead of me thinking that play is a chore, play is what I need to stay youthful and alive and present and a human being, not a human doer. So I want to leave these thoughts with you, and I want to leave them for me as well. I always feel like my podcast episodes are always what I need to hear and how I'm going to be learning from this. But I think my advice to my 32-year-old self is always lead with love. I feel like love is always going to be the answer. And it's kind of interesting, love, how people define it. And I know I've shared the definition of love on this podcast before, but hey, I'm going to do it again. Love wouldn't deny a breath. It wouldn't deny a grain of sand. It is totally in love with itself, and it delights in acknowledging itself in its own presence in every way without limits. Love embraces all, everything from the murderer to the saint to the dog and cat. Love is so vast within itself that it will burn you up. It's so vast that there's nothing you can do with it. All you can do is be it. Love is what we all are. That's immovable. Love pours into your love, and there's nothing you can do about it. Love joins everything without condition. It doesn't avoid the nightmare. It looks forward to it and then questions the thoughts. And I think that life can throw some crazy curveballs at you that shatter your reality and flip it upside down and shake it and create all this chaos. And sometimes you can feel like you're drowning from all the flipping and turning over and shaking. But if we can lead with love and compassion and understanding to everyone, and that includes ourselves. It's just, I think the way humans can thrive and evolve into better versions, better generations, healthier, more loving human beings. And I think that 31-year-old Haley has gone through some really dark times and some of the hardest things she's ever had to do. I think this year has been the year of the, what's that metaphor? The chiseling of the sword. Is that yeah, that one. Or where it's a hot iron and they're banging it with the hammer. That's been the year, the 31-year-old Haley, but I'm just so proud of her, the 31-year-old Haley, because she woke up every day and she took care of her son and she built those businesses and she did everything in her power to keep going. And yeah, she showed up really crappy sometimes, a lot of times. And she also showed up really amazing and consistently resilient. And I love this understanding of like past me and future me and present me. And past me has learned so much. And sometimes it's kind of interesting to think like young me, like young me, like 15-year-old Haley would be, I think, in a way disappointed, but also like surprised because I thought I would be X, I would have had X accomplishment, had X things, had X money, all this goals, right? But I think she would also be so impressed and so amazed at what she's gone through and where she's come. And sometimes we forget those parts, right? We forget why we are where we are. And that's okay, right? And thinking about future us, what would future us say to present us? That's always a kicker. I love having these understandings and visions, I guess you would say, or just a mindful state or a questioning state of being where I'm like, I wonder what future me would be telling me. I wonder where future me is, what she's doing, what she's wearing, who she's with, what she does. And I love her. And there's this super cute Billie Eilish song that's like, I'm in love, but not with anybody. I can't wait to meet her. I love that song. I think it goes, I'm in love with my future. I'm gonna look it up. Here we go. Yeah, okay, it's called My Future. Okay, because it says, because I'm in love with my future. Can't wait to meet her. And I'm in love, but not with anybody else. Just want to get to know myself. Oh, isn't that just so well said? And I think the idea of being in love with my future, but also this love of me now and love of me in the past is so empowering and such a good skill. And I think the way that we learn to love ourselves is that forgiveness piece and that compassionate piece and that acceptance of reality. A lot of times we can beat ourselves up and say, like, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have done that. I should have known. Why did I do that? Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. Woe is me, woe is me. And it just doesn't serve us. It just keeps us stuck. And we did all those things in the past because we did. And there was no way that we could have known what we know now back then. Like there's no way we would have had that hindsight. And I honestly think that one of the purposes in this life is to make mistakes. I really believe that it is that way because we do, right? It's like reality. Reality always wins, says my favorite author, Byron Katie. Reality only wins. And I think birthdays are a passage of time and there's this back and forth, all these images come in our head of like the past us and the future us and the present us and there's lots of comparisons that are happening not only in the external world but in our internal world. And I think it's all beautifully chaotic. And I love allowing the chaos. And I love trying to embody the calm in that chaos and dissociating myself from the chaos, which happens to be our human minds. It's so interesting to think about the human mind, if you think that you're thinking, you're being thought. I just think that's wild. And Descartes, he's like a famous philosopher, and he says, I think, therefore I am. But then who's the one observing the thoughts? And this is thought work from Eckhart Tolle. And so it's just beautiful to understand that we are awareness and consciousness and how much our consciousness and awareness gets a bit possessed or subdued or in a trance of ego. And when I say ego, a lot of times it's just the chatter in our mind, right? And I love being at peace with ego. I love being at peace with reality. And whatever comes my way, I accept with open arms and not always open arms. I like the things that are nice and I shut the things that are not nice. But I think that when it comes to birthdays, I think it's so important to remember that if you are not feeling loved on your birthday, that it's a stressful thought and that it's almost always not true. I guarantee, I could even say it's not true. The thought that you're not loved. There is so much love that is around us. I mean, I the other day I was even thinking, man, those garbage guys, they're out there at like 5 in the morning. I was getting a bottle for my son, and they're out there at 5 in the morning. And I'm just so thankful for garbage people. Like, think about it. Like, I don't have to lug my trash into my car and take it to a dump. And that's just nowadays. If we thought about how people disposed of waste back then, ew, 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 ew. And that's just garbage. I mean, there's like indoor plumbing, there's water, there's electricity, energy. I'm just like, I don't know how these things work. I don't know how and who are operating them, but I have them. And I'm just so grateful. Like, I don't know who turns on the switch or who connected the wires to my house to make sure my AC and my heater and my power and my water is all running. But somehow, by some miracle, I'm able to receive these things. And and yes, be grateful, but like I feel like that's such a cliche nowadays. I like the idea of being more aware, being more aware of everything around you and especially the love. I think the love that is around us is blinded by the ego chatter and all the drama and blues of birthdays or whatever day, honestly. It doesn't have to be your birthday. And I love knowing these things and sharing these things with my clients, with my podcast listeners, that love is all around us. And we are totally blind to it when we're in the trance of ego, which is just unconscious thought, the automatic thoughts. The only thing we're guilty of is believing those things. And so if it's your birthday coming up or not your birthday, I hope that this is a message of comfort to you, a message of hope, and a message of love. You guys, it is officially 12:02. It is my birthday, and I'm going to leave this podcast as a 32-year-old. Thank you for listening. Take care.